Hey everybody, welcome back to Texas Rugby Monthly. Man, it's been a month. A lot has gone on in the world of rugby, but nobody cares about the world of rugby. All we care about is Texas Rugby.
Our Texas.
The yeehaw Texas. Lots to talk about, though. There's been a lot that's been going on. There's a lot that happened the day that we record this podcast. Sorry, Brick, I wasn't going to throw you under the bus so far, but yes, it'll be okay. I promise. The world will keep on spinning. Things will happen. But since we got so much to talk about, we want to get right to it. Grant, who do we got coming on for the first time ever onto the podcast today?
So we have a distinguished guest. I was going to say extinguished, but
extinguished.
No, it's a distinguished.
We put a fire out on him.
He's
hot.
He is Kirt Tate, first and perhaps last of his name, builder of rugby fields, coach of the game, leader of clubs, unions, and committees, patron of youth rugby, wearer of the biggest hats, and the third of my 4 favorite Longhorns.
Absolutely, Kirt. Welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
Wait. So you have 4 favorite Longhorns, and he's only the third?
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
after Matthew McConaughey, who's the other one?
No. Oh. Matthew McConaughey is not even on my list.
I got it. Frank Doby and Burke Breathed.
Yep.
Nailed it.
Frank Doby and Burke Breathed. And then Earl Campbell's the 4th.
Oh, Earl Campbell. Earl the Pearl, baby.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Kirt, thanks for joining us. We do greatly appreciate it. Taking time out of your day to talk to 3 guys that really just shoot the shit all the time anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yes.
That's rugby, right?
That's rugby. That's right. So for those who don't know you and who only got a piece of the distinguished and extinguished synopsis that Grant gave, why don't you tell everybody who you are and your role and why you're on Texas Rugby Monthly?
Sure. Well, I'm currently the president of the Texas Rugby Union. It just started my 3rd term. I'm also chair of the USA Rugby Club Council and the head coach of St. Edward's University. But in the past, I've coached the Austin Huns, the San Marcos Grays, played for the Austin Blacks, played for University of Texas, played for the Huns, and have been involved in Texas rugby since 1983.
Wow. That's a pretty good resume. I can't compete with that at all.
It's all right.
It's all right. It's all right.
I mean, but it's very limited to this very special area we like to call Eastern California.
Wow. Ooh, we just lost.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't do this any longer. I'm sorry. There we go.
We just lost that. Oh man.
Oh wow, he did that.
Man.
Now I feel better.
Now he feels better with his Quins jersey on, even though he had the good old Austin Elite jersey on there for a minute.
I played against the Quins a time or 20.
So, Kirt, this year has been, we talked about it briefly right at the top. I said, a lot has been going on. Not much has been going on for you in the year of rugby, has it? No, go ahead. I was going to say, tell us about what it's been like.
It's been a crazy year off the field. Obviously on the field, we've been shut down for coming up on 12 months. But off the field, let's see, USA Rugby went bankrupt, reorganized, came out of bankruptcy. We've, had, MLR has continued to grow. There's just a lot going on in rugby. It's just been, for us administrators, focusing on, keeping the game alive and keeping the training programs and coach education programs and administrative things that have to get done going, so that hopefully when this pandemic ends, we can get back on the field and go back to work.
Yeah, absolutely. How has it been kind of, what's been the biggest, I guess initially, what was the biggest challenge? I mean, not in my mind, I'm thinking, holy crap, we've got to figure out what's going on with all these games that are, what is it, March or end of February, beginning of March, when everything started just compiling? Is it crisis management mode that you're trying to put people in instantly?
Well, to be honest, the early part of the pandemic was probably the easiest part because we didn't know how long it was going to last. And the state was shutting things down. Everybody was shutting things down. And so it was really just a matter of saying, hey, guys, we can't play right now. We'll let you know when we can. And, we're going to cancel these games for the time being. And it wasn't a terribly complicated situation. And that was all being overshadowed by, at that time, the problems that USA Rugby was having, money that USA Rugby owed to the unions that we were trying to collect. There were a lot of very big things on our plate, and the pandemic felt like just a minor inconvenience. Where the pandemic got difficult is coming into the fall, and since then, when everybody is eager to get back on the field, and we're trying to figure out how we can do that safely, when we can do that safely, keeping everybody engaged, but encouraging everybody to stay safe. And that's been where the pandemic situation has really been difficult, has been in the management over the last 6 months, not the first 6.
Yeah.
I would say, the protocol seems to be one of the most difficult things to handle because we've never had to deal with protocol involving any sort of pandemic, right? We've canceled games before because of weather. We've postponed things, but when you start talking about having to test players or have them fill out forms or waivers, that seems like a much more difficult situation. How has that been handled for TRU so far?
Well, it is a very difficult situation, and honestly, it's really on the clubs to manage that process themselves. As a volunteer organization that covers 4 states in a region bigger than France, we don't have the personnel to go around and train or enforce clubs, these protocols with clubs. So we really have to rely on being a source of information and to try and provide clubs with resources so that they can do the best for their members.
Kirk, you've definitely done that. I mean, the TRU has set the benchmark for how unions should communicate with their members, especially not just before this year, but keeping that up during the pandemic, from not just the union, but also the competitions committee and even the Texas Rugby Referees Association really did a bang up job keeping communications going during all this time when most people just aren't doing anything. So in light of that, I want to know, what's the most surprising issue that came out of the pandemic stand down, and might we see something even more surprising than that?
Wow. It's all been a surprise, in particular, how long it's lasted, and just how difficult it is to nail down what's going on. The thing that has really come forward is that it is very much a local problem, and it varies. And so, I think 10 days ago the parks in Dallas were all closed, and you couldn't get a field even if we were wide open for play. And in 2 weeks, that might be San Antonio. Right now, Abilene's at 100% hospital bed utilization. And a month ago, there wasn't a big issue. So we can't really, it's been really difficult to say, here is where the Texas Rugby Union is at, because the question really is, where in the Texas Rugby Union are you? And what is your situation in your locale today, which might not be the same a week from now, might not be the same a month from now. And so we haven't really been able to say, hey, Texas Rugby Union, here's the status.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't
Yeah,
a
so
status. There are many statuses.
I know that for our division for Lone Star Conference that we have Halloween off in East Texas, they're able to play. They basically the entire time because they don't have the same shutdown issues that the major cities have had, right? It's major cities have struggled through this more than rural areas. But looking at, not just the game on the field, but TRU as a whole, how is TRU healthy right now? Are we growing? Do we have the revenue to push and do things we want to do in the future?
Sure. We're fine financially. So we had managed to collect pretty much 100% of our budgeted dues last year when things shut down. And we have been running with almost a year's worth of cash in reserve in the bank for years now. And our primary, about 65% of our annual expenditures are on referees, which you're not spending if you don't have games. So we're in a fine shape financially. Where I think the bigger concern is in terms of player retention and the growth of the game. In that regard, we have about 2,600 members, and currently we have about 100 members registered. Whereas this time last year, we would have had 2,600 registered. And that's because why would a young person spend $100 if there's no rugby to be played?
Yeah.
I think that for players who are in the middle of their college career or players who are in the middle of their club career, they're all going to come back. My concern is with players who are at those transition points, graduating high school and going to college, graduating college, going to club, or players who are in that just one more season mode at the back end of their club career. We know players can ride that just one season train for 5, 7, 8 years, but once they stop for a year or 2 years, coming back is a real hill to climb. So,
and this is giving them a chance to recover. They've got a year of recovery, so some of those players are definitely going to want to come back after not hitting the field for a year.
So I think we've always had our highest attrition at those transition points when you matriculate from one age group to another. And I expect that to be exacerbated by the pandemic. But I think that's going to be a temporary effect. I think that, we'll have a lost year of high school seniors and college seniors that we really see drop off, but that'll come back and we'll get the game growing again. I'm confident. There isn't, I hear people say, oh my gosh, people are going to find other things to do. But there really isn't anything analogous to
nothing
rugby
else to
out
do.
there.
Well, there's nothing to do right now anyway. What do you stay at home and play video games is about the only thing that is
team contact, team full contact sports with the camaraderie and the culture that rugby has. There just isn't anything else out there like it. So I think that in the long run, I think that we'll come out of this last 12 months or this period stronger than ever, with USA Rugby getting back on a strong financial footing and hopefully the MLR getting fired up again. I think that the future's bright, but we're in a tunnel right now, and we gotta get ourselves through the other side.
Yeah. Do you think that you talked about the financial issues with USA Rugby have been prevalent? It's talked about till the cows come home on so many different channels. Do you think that this year we'll call it a year because it's been a year, this year off of rugby has helped them? Like, have they reached out to you? Have you been working with them? I know that everybody's siloed into their own, for the most part, into their own different unions. Are you guys working a little more closely with them, given the financial past that they've had, in order to help build a stronger USA Rugby organization?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So the club council is basically like I sort of compare it to an association of governors, of state governors. The senior club council is made up of the 19 geographic union presidents in the United States. So Texas, Midwest, Southern California, Northern California, and so forth. And we, as a council, have, under the new bylaws, have been able to appoint a representative to the USA Rugby Board and a representative to every USA Rugby standing committee, including things like audit and risk, diversity and inclusion, referees and laws, etc. And the same goes for the College Council and the Youth Council. So we actually have more grassroots representation in the decision-making bodies of USA Rugby than we've ever had before. And so I think that we are in a position to really have the national governing body be more responsive to the grassroots than maybe it has been in a while. The flip side of that, though, of those financial difficulties in the reorganization, is that there are some services that USA Rugby used to provide that they either can no longer provide, financially speaking, or that a decision was made that it made more sense for us to handle that ourselves, being closer to the coal face, as it were.
Yeah.
So things like running a national championships, which this year obviously is not going to be what it has been in years past, but eventually we'll get back to a normal competition structure.
Yeah.
And running those national championships, instead of that being an event that is put on by USA Rugby, that's going to be an event that the unions get together, organize, and put on ourselves. And that will involve, some learning curves and some challenges and some new funding models that, we'll have to put in place to handle that. But it is, it's not a bad thing. I look at it as an opportunity to structure those things in a way that makes sense for us.
Yeah. Interesting.
So Kirk, you've talked about the changes occurred due to the decentralization of USA Rugby. How are some of these changes strengthening the national union as a whole? And and how is that being received at the local unions? Especially, those of us who have been around for a while and remember the TUs and the LAU structures when there was a lot of strength there before. How is those changes being received?
Received in terms of, well, I think the unions are, we've received it well. We had a lot of concerns in the past about not having that voice or that connection to the national governing body. There was a one-person club department, and then when he got let go, there was no club department. They had rolled out a strategic plan that in 20 pages, I think, mentioned club rugby exactly once before the bankruptcy and the reorganization. So it was really clear that USA Rugby, as it was previously structured, did not place an emphasis on the adult club game. And the argument was always that the youth were the future, but who coaches and administers and referees and funds, and who are the parents of those youth players? Well, guess what? It's folks from the club community.
Yeah.
If you neglect your membership, what's going to happen there?
So I feel like we're in a lot better place we're in a place of opportunity to make those changes going forward. But we got a lot of work to do because USA Rugby is just come out of bankruptcy. They don't have resources. Their staff is about a quarter of what it was 2 years ago. So, and not just USA Rugby, but every national rugby union around the world and World Rugby. And I'm including New Zealand, Australia, England. Everybody around the world is in a really tough financial place in the game right now,
especially after this past year too, with all the
so
COVID.
We're all in a position of we can choose to look at this as an opportunity, or we can choose to look at this as a disaster. And I think, looking at it as an opportunity is the only sensible way to go.
Yeah, I think the disaster part of it's already passed, and we need to figure out what's next. How are we going to go forward from it, right? Yeah. And
I think that, from a club perspective, I think one of the things that may really help us in Texas is the idea that we're going to have control over competition structure, and in the club game, we're going to have control over eligibility rules, discipline, be able to structure some procedures and processes that are more appropriate to what we do than what was being handed down to us from on high. And I think that we'll see a little bit more flexibility in terms of player movement, a little bit more flexibility in terms of creating competitions that make sense for that locale versus competitions that are being shoehorned into a top-down national structure. And I think things will be a little less uniform across the country, in the sense that different unions may have their own ways of handling things. But I think we look at that as strength rather than a problem.
Yeah. Well, I think that. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
And I was wondering, with that little that bit of autonomy to the GUs, will we see like memorandums of understanding or agreements as to how discipline and competitions and things like that will be handled between those GUs, such as if a club from one GU travels to another, a guy gets a red card, how is that going to be handled disciplinary wise? I mean, are those the types of things we'll see?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a disciplinary committee that's headed up by Megan Braun out of the Midwest. We've got our eligibility committee that's headed by Tam Breckenridge, who handled the old USA eligibility committee as a chair. Eric Geib is running our competitions committee. So, we have committees set up that are reviewing all of those things. And you haven't heard a lot about it because we've been, one, creating new structures, and two, we haven't been on the field. So, nobody's had to engage with those processes.
Yeah.
Right.
But absolutely. And, I'm hopeful that we will move towards, a process that is really focused first and foremost on removing barriers to participation, and setting a bar that you need in order to do A, B, and C, as opposed to setting a trigger for disqualification if you do A, B, and C. Right now we have rules that are triggers. And if you step on that tripwire, then a bad thing happens. And it's incumbent upon you to know what all the tripwires are and avoid them. And instead, I would like to have bars and say, okay, we have to clear this standard in order to do X. We have to clear that standard in order to do Y. In order to do Y. That way, we're always driving people forward and upward rather than, knocking people back.
Yeah. And in this discussion, we started having these discussions 3 or 4 years ago about getting it into this place right now.
Yeah, and but we haven't got all that done yet. I mean,
no, but at least you're moving
that way.
Yeah,
and we're gonna have to figure out, as with all of these processes, you change some things, and then you realize that, okay, 3 of those things worked. One of those might work, but it's got to be different. And 2 of them were a terrible idea, and we got to undo those and go back and try again. That's the nature of the beast. And part of the problem with our regs as they were is that they were all designed with the best possible intentions, but they had organically evolved with, oiling one squeaky wheel after another into a hodgepodge that was difficult.
Yeah.
So I know that we've And Dustin, what do you got to say? I've
No,
got
it's
one more
okay. No,
question.
I've got a question. I was just looking like, hey, where do we go from here within the state of Texas and the TRU and
Sure.
play in 2021? But no, Gary, if you got another question, go for it, man.
No, go ahead. I'll let him answer that. That'll play
Yeah.
into mine.
That'll play into yours. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you're talking about what's coming down the road
Mhm.
from a USA Rugby standpoint, and how the GUs, fit into that. But
Mhm.
obviously, without any play on the field right now, we're still kind of just
Right.
sitting here. Like you said, a lot of back office stuff. So I guess, per the last meeting notes, and I think we have the last meeting notes, but you just had a meeting recently.
We did.
Yesterday
Met
or
last
so,
night.
or
Yeah.
that. Well, if you're watching this and listening to it, it was last week, so
Sure.
it's already out. But I guess, where are you at? As far as TRU, obviously COVID is still rearing its evil head
Right.
throughout the state.
So
where are you guys at, and what's going to happen over
yeah.
the next couple of weeks and months?
So we've got three things that are going on right now. One, we were looking at a February start, and we've pushed that into March. And mainly that's because we've had some regions where teams couldn't get on the field. And, as I alluded to earlier, different hot spots in different places. And we, one, can't run a fair competition if not everyone can play, not a union-wide competition. And two, we don't want to create a competitive pressure that will encourage teams to uh, be careless, play when they really shouldn't or when they don't feel like they should, travel to, from, or through hot spots when it would not be prudent to do so. Um, so we've postponed the start of formal competition into March. We are working, and it may be out by the time this is airs, but we're working on a procedure where, in the meantime, clubs can apply for a waiver from the standard stage 4 restrictions to get approval to play based on their local conditions being conducive to playing regular rugby. So if you're a club that's we alluded to East Texas earlier. If you're a club that's in a place where COVID is really not a serious problem, where everybody is active, and you are playing against an opponent who can safely come to you and play, then we'll have a set of criteria that you can go through to apply and make that game happen. So that folks who are in places that are locked down can be safe and not suffer a competitive penalty. And folks who are in places where things are open, they can play. And we can have some, control over what those protocols look like when they do, as opposed to just saying it's open, it's the Wild West, use your best judgment, do what you want.
Interesting.
Then the third thing is, because the season at this point, the competitive season, is now being delayed to the point where we canceled it last season. We are going to reduce the dues. Right now, members who are just training, they don't pay any TRU dues. They just pay the USA Rugby training fee, which mainly just covers insurance and a small bit of overhead. To be training. And then they would only have had to pay the full TRU dues when competition started and they registered to pay, play full competition rugby. We've only had about 100 people pay that out of 2,600 that we'd normally expect. So we'll be giving a credit to those folks who have, paid that full dues already. And then for those who are in a place where they're able to go and play rugby right now, they'll be able to register as a full member at a reduced rate. And that reduced rate will still be enough for us to pay the referee fees and provide the services for the games that we anticipate we might be able to have this spring. But it'll cut that cost in half to members who want to go and do that. And then we may look at that again if things are delayed further, and and potentially waive it altogether. But right now we've collected about $5,000 in dues when we normally collect about $110,000. So,
Kirt, so speaking to that, I know this is the question that all club rugby players, members, want to ask you, which is, what's the risk of club rugby being done before the end of February, the entire season being done? Are we on red alert at this point?
that's a great question. I think that we are going to have clubs who are going to be able to play some rugby this spring. I think it's going to be dependent on local conditions. As far as the actual season, we have set a drop dead date to make that determination. I believe it's March 1st. I'll have to double check that. It'll be in our minutes. But we've set a drop dead date to basically say on that date, we're going to look at it and either say we can go forward with the competition or not. If we cannot go forward with the competition, then we are looking at organizing local tournaments in the various regions that would take into account local conditions and, basically get some rugby out there for the people who are able to play rugby regardless. So I think there will be some rugby this spring. Exactly how much and exactly what that rugby looks like, that's going to vary by location and by conditions.
That's a gut-wrenching realization there.
That's tough.
And you guys can't have come by that decision easily.
No, and we're not alone, right? I mean, it's
No.
that way all over the country. Rocky Mountain is completely shut down. Several regions have already canceled their seasons for the year.
Wow.
There are other unions where they've already just said, yeah, it's not happening this year. It's done. We have deliberately taken the approach of not canceling things, but choosing to postpone and to keep them on the calendar, keep them on the schedule for as long as possible. The theory behind that is that it is a lot easier to cancel something at the last minute if conditions don't allow than it is to spin up a season out of whole cloth because things got better sooner than you expected.
Yeah.
And especially when you've got clubs that need to reserve fields, you've got clubs that need to make facilities arrangements. So we have, even going all the way back to last summer and not canceling our annual development summit until 3-4 weeks out. It was keep the reservation for the hotels, the fields, the ballroom, everything for that event, the meeting rooms for that event as long as possible, because if things clear up, you're not going to suddenly create an event, in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so we've continued to adopt that approach. While some unions have just said, look, it's done and canceled it, we've kept those things on the schedule. And I know to some folks it feels like we're stringing them along, but our feeling is that what we're really doing is preserving the possibility that we'll be able to play.
Yeah. Man, that's
and who knows, in April, May, if the vaccinations are out, some small 15s tournaments in the major cities, in prep for sevens, right? I mean, at this point, I think a lot of people's feeling is we need to get there and play so that people are ready for seventh season, right?
Yeah. Well, and and another thing, we talked about in very own local conditions. We also didn't talk about the politics. I mean, Oklahoma has worse infection rates than Texas, and they're like, "What's COVID?"
Wait, you mean politics are involved in things that go on within
so
rugby union?
No. Never.
And Austin can be on lockdown with, and Dallas can be open, or Houston can be open with, half the infection rate or half the hospitalization rate.
Yeah.
So we're really, at the mercy of those local conditions.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try and move forward so that the people who are able to play and feel comfortable playing will be able to do so. And the folks who can't play or don't feel comfortable playing won't be suffering some sort of competitive penalty or forfeits or fines or anything because their conditions or their judgment doesn't include going out and playing rugby right now.
Yeah, I think it's a great plan.
Yeah, it's the plan that we got to have right now, and it's I commend you guys for making those hard decisions. It's something that we're just all kind of dealing with, and to be thrown into this, 12 months ago and all the craziness that's happened since then, I think it's been something for you guys for sure.
Yeah. Well, for every club that is like, this is ridiculous and this is stupid, why aren't we playing rugby? There's another club that's saying, this is ridiculous, why are we even talking about playing rugby?
Yep, exactly.
And so, a big key was to just let go of the idea that we're going to make everybody happy.
Yep. Can't make everybody happy all the time, right?
Can't make them happy, but we can let them live.
Oh yeah, we can. Yeah, exactly.
We can make our wives happy all the time. I don't know how we're going to make everybody.
And on that note, we'll call hey, Kirt, I really do appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we could go on for hours talking about this status, and one of my questions that I didn't ask, but for another time, talking about state championships versus national championships, and the removal of a national championship, which Grant and I have talked about before.
You know what that means? It just means we'll have to invite him back on again.
We'll just have to have him come back on and talk a little rugby. I don't know, Kirt, if you're okay with that, we'll have you come back and chat.
Absolutely. And that's a fun topic that we can get into some heated red-faced arguments about.
I'm sure we could have some very well. There's talking about things like that, but there's also talking about how the TRU and MLR working together with local clubs in the building of things like what's going on in Houston with
that's going to be that'll
be a great discussion.
That could be a really great discussion. We are the only GU with 3 MLR franchises.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And
4
next year. 4 next year.
4 next year.
and we're one of the few GUs with a functioning Division I competition.
Yeah, a strong Division I competition.
So we are in. When you talk about things like national championships versus state championships and so forth, Texas is not like a lot of the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, there were 5 clubs in the country that were fielding teams in all 3 divisions, and 4 of them were in Texas.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Lots more to talk about.
We're different.
Yeah, we are different. Everything will all rugby in the U.S. will run through Texas. That's my thought. Is so.
Well, Kirt, right here.
Kirt, yeah, exactly. That's why we do this. That's why we do this every month. So, and it's fun. But hey, Kirt, do greatly appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. Much obliged. We look forward to having you back on again in the future. Stay tuned, everybody. After a short break, we'll come back with all the things going on in Houston, Austin, and Dallas. Stay tuned. Well, welcome back, everybody. We greatly appreciate you listening to us, watching us, wherever you're tuning in from. We also appreciate having Kirt Tate on. I mean, man, we could talk for hours. Hours with Kirt. So I think it's good stuff. I look forward to chatting with him and look forward to what's going to happen with the TRU, and look forward to some of the stuff that we're going to hopefully see maybe in March. I don't know, with COVID stuff. We'll see. We're going to go around the horn as we
heard
go.
March 1st.
What's that? March 1st. Decision time.
March 1st.
We're going to go around the horn as we always do, talk about each one of the cities and things that are happening. We're going to let Dallas go last today. And in memoriam. And
all right, I'm just gonna hang out here.
You just hang out there. You just have a beer.
Yeah, Eastern. We're gonna let Eastern California go first, right?
Yeah, Eastern California. That's that'd be Austin for everybody. Kind of holding on to. So for me, really two things. There's not a whole lot going on. We're all getting prepared. It is exciting for those of you that follow Austin on social media and everything. Right now, what you've seen is a lot of the players are joining the team. A lot of them are coming into their COVID pods per se. We've seen a lot of the international visa players start arriving, so that's pretty exciting. I do know that there are still more announcements for one or two more players that might be joining, which is really exciting. Lots of rumors around there. We're not going to get into rumors today because, again, I don't want to get in trouble again. So didn't get in trouble, but just like, hey, hold off on the rumors. But so we won't talk about that. But it is exciting to hear some of the people who are coming back to Austin. The second thing that I got is probably one of the best things, not only for Austin, but for MLR in general. And that is that Austin secured a TV deal with KXAN and their sub channel KBVO. And for those of you that don't know, or with different areas of Texas, KXAN is NBC affiliate. And if you've been watching any television in Austin, watching, not Major League Soccer, but Premiership Soccer, you've seen tons of commercials for the Austin Gilgronis. And that's why, is because they have secured a partnership with them. I do know that they have also secured a large jersey sponsor and a large actual partner in the city itself. So that also is very exciting. I can't wait for them to announce that. Pretty good stuff there. So that's what's exciting.
It is great stuff.
It's fantastic. If you look back at, a couple years, I think Austin was the only one who was doing all of their games solely on Facebook Watch. They had the ESPN Plus, but it was kind of the partnership, but they were doing a lot of their games with Facebook Watch. To know that not only are we on KXAN KBVO, but they're also going to have what I understand to be a weekly program dedicated for rugby in Austin. We talked with Dan Power on the Austin Rugby podcast last week, and he also has mentioned that they're going to be doing a weekly program and probably going to be doing that out of Austin as well. So lots of good things coming out of Austin as far as production, as far as getting the name out there, as far as really just promoting rugby to non-rugby fans, which is good because that is how we grow people and fans, and that's how we grow interest in the sport. So that's kind of my big one. Tied with that, Coach Harris is going to be on KXAN this Friday on Studio 512. So we'll post all the links on social media where we can, and really looking forward to that. So I think, not a whole lot going on. Players are coming in. TV sponsorships are being announced. That's pretty awesome. So that's kind of what I got here. That not a whole lot else down here in Eastern California, southeastern California, like technically, we're just kind of like southeast.
I would say before today, the news of that TV contract for Austin might have been the biggest news.
And Major League Rugby.
Maybe the off season for Major League Rugby.
It probably could be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
because those kind of things take a lot of work.
Yeah, for people who are not big rugby fans but are flipping through the channels to catch it on a local channel, that's huge.
Yeah, I talked about it with Dan Power, and Dan, God love him for being a Gilgroniac and heart and soul into it. Basically what we said is, just turn on the television. If you're not going to be able to watch the game live, just turn it on so you get the viewership numbers up, because that's what we want to see. So if you're watching, you're listening, if you're going to watch any Major League Rugby game, even if you can't watch it, no matter where you are in the state of Texas or even in the country, if you're listening from outside, just turn on a game and watch it. Just turn it on. Let it play in the background. If you've got something to do, you're taking care of your kid, you're taking care of your dog, go do that. Like, don't sit down and and just wait for the game to show. Watch it, turn it on live so we get those numbers up. Tied with that, and I completely forgot this, and you'll probably get more of this in the next episode that we talk about. Austin has kind of a new general manager of the organization. His name's Mike Sheehan, and Matt Burgess.
What?
It's kind of been subtle. It was actually in the press release too. So I was just going back through that press release beforehand. So Mike has tons of experience, got some good experience, good background, and as a general manager, and definitely focused on building those partnerships. Matt Burgess, his wife is actually having a child back in Australia. So rather than spending all his time here, like he was last year, he's going to be back in Australia, still kind of around working with Loyals LLC, but they brought on Mike Sheehan, and yeah, I got a chance to meet him about 2 weeks ago. Man, cool dude. Look forward to what he's going to come out with. So that's what we got in Austin. Grant, over to you, man.
So not a whole lot of stuff going on over here in Houston. The big news is that they have finally laid the slab for the gymnasium. That'll be on the northeast corner of the pad, up just north of practice field 1. So there'll be a gymnasium there for the players with a couple of offices in there. So really good stuff there coming out of that. We have re-signed Taylor Howden, Diego Magno, and Adrian Boyson. Taylor's a big deal. He's also our youth coach as well as our backs coach on the Rugby HTX side. And he provides, he's the general. If you look at the teams he's been on, the Aviators, the Gold, now coming here to Houston, been here a while. And this is his home away from New Zealand. This is where he came to when he came from New Zealand, came up through the Katy Barbarians program before he moved on into the rest of his rugby. So it's nice to see Taylor come back home and be what looks like to be a franchise man with the Cats. Diego Magno, of course, 92 caps for Uruguay. There's not a whole lot of players in the MLR that can even say they have 50. So that's a big deal. And then Adrian Boyson, he was a big deal for us at number 8 last year. Allowed us to have some of our quicker and bigger guys at 7 and 6, and he just does a bang up job at 8. And then coming into wing is Paula Bellicana, and Paula is from Suva, Fiji, and last played his rugby at Zebra in the Pro 14. So looks like we have a pretty high-powered wing coming in there.
Yeah, that's definitely. Just speaking of Zebra, like a former Austin player last year, Potu Leavasa, like he just signed with Zebra. Mm-hmm. So Potu was a solid player for us last year. So that was unfortunate to see him leave, but again, to kind of see that change, like I think we'll see a lot more of this in the next years. Like I just think that some of these guys playing Pro 14, playing Curry Cup, I'm just we're going to see more and more influence.
If the MLR is smart, they'll look at what Pro 14, the Japan Top 14, the Pro Data have done, and in order to bring players in and say, okay, what are they doing that's making that is bringing these next gen players in, the guys who are on the bubble for the big leagues, and could actually punch above their weight if they given the chance.
Oh, absolutely.
And if MLR is smart, they figure out how to do that, bring those players in, and not just be a place for some marquee guys to do their twilight tour on.
Yeah.
But be a place to where, hey, this is the toughest rugby on the planet. We all know Pro Data, some of the hardest hitting, toughest rugby out there. Japan rugby is very fast, very fluid. You have to, you're playing a running game. So at those levels, that's where I think the MLR should want itself to be.
Yeah, I think, honestly, we're top 14 right now is probably the closest, if I'm going to attach my, MLR chain to mm-hmm. one, you look at the growth trajectory of top 14, just from a business standpoint, it's light years ahead of some of these other leagues. Yeah, granted, Premiership's been around for years, but the exponential growth of that top 14 it directly resulted in the impact of the Japanese team and the quality of play in Japan. Yes, they have tons and tons and tons of money there, so we can't deny that. But I think that I love seeing that. I love that fast-paced play.
We expect about 4 to 5 more signings with the Cats to be announced this month. And so that'll be interesting. But
nice.
I think that's been overshadowed by something that happened in Dallas. Rick, how was your day today?
Ladies and gentlemen, today's date is Tuesday, January 9th. It is roughly around 7:30 in the evening. A few hours ago.
January 19th.
Oh, what'd I say? 9th? 19th. Shit, I don't even know what day it is anymore. I bet the Jackals wish it was January 9th.
Period. Yeah, so, the Harlequins and the Reds are really putting together some squads to play.
No.
Maybe if TRU allows rugby, we're hoping that March 1st drop deadline doesn't, happen with zero rugby being played for the rest of the year for us.
So that happened. Yeah, the Reds. Okay, cool.
So what's going on?
Dark?
What's going on over
Dark?
Arlington?
They announced that they will for 2021 in terms of playing. They're looking towards 2022 as their inaugural year. It's the worst tease in all of sports history.
Oh my gosh.
We're involved in the original organization of MLR. And of course, every year, Dallas is supposed to be one of the new teams joining.
Yeah.
And we've got a club coming in. We have all these signings. I mean, really one of the best off seasons in terms of just publicity. Social media was off the charts for us this year. And then just they come in to slap us in the face and say, this isn't happening. It's not right now. We don't know. Like the ticket sales guy is telling me, keep your money in. You'll be on the priority list for next year. I was like, whatever. I'll keep my deposit in. Hopefully, we'll have a season next year. But it seems like every year it's just a slap in the face to us that we don't have a team playing.
Yeah, I think for you guys, really, it's not just in previous seasons it was kind of like a tease of like, oh, Dallas may get a team this year, but I mean this year, let's talk about it. You had your Paladin jerseys, you had all of your kits, you have gear, like you were full announcement, you were part of the schedule.
I have jerseys.
I mean,
haven't even gotten my hand yet. They're on their way.
Yeah, from Rugby Shop. I'm half tempted just to order one just in case they don't ever come, because that's what happened with the herd gear. Like I never got one of those. Like I wanted one of those black jerseys, and I am literally tempted right now to go buy.
Is this like a limited edition?
At a boy. What's that?
So is that a limited edition jersey?
No. That one was fine. That was season 2, right? Okay. I was talking about the very, very limited, like week-long Austin Herd, like with the bowl in the front and the craziness.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Like that was a slick. Touting some of them. Anyway, that was a nice jersey.
So I hate to be that guy, but I will remind you guys that I said that I won't believe that the Jackals are going to have a season until there's a team on the field in front of the lights.
Yep, exactly. I do remember that. I'll try to go find that clip if we know what month that we put that in.
And I think it was the first time we did
it. Was the first episode.
We have one of the largest supporters groups in all of MLR on Facebook. We have 1,200 people.
All in Dallas.
Facebook. 75% in Dallas.
There you go.
Then there's like a 30% in this one small region of the UK that I can't figure out why.
Yeah, right.
And then a bunch of people from South Africa. Anyway.
Yeah, we get that too.
We have this huge group. We're making deals to have watch parties at several different places around DFW. We're setting up a deal with a brewery.
Yeah.
Out in Arlington, do host pre-game stuff, allow us to shoot our shows there, doing interviews with players, coaches, and we've got all this in the works. and then this news today, and it's just
yeah. Well, that's
Yeah,
like literally all afternoon since the announcement, my phone has been ringing, and
has the team contacted you? Have like those that you talk with within the organization usually have they contacted you to talk to you about it?
Yeah, they actually emailed us before the announcement was made public.
Oh, so you were crying even before it came out.
I just was in shock. I'm still a little bit in.
Grant, what do
I
you
got
got?
a question, Rick, and I got to ask this. Does it seem to anybody like this organization is snake bit?
I mean, there's only one connection throughout this entire time.
Does anybody else
with
want to
this
say
club?
Oh, you need a new GM. You need a different GM.
You need a GM. You need somebody who's... I'll say it. He doesn't know me. I don't give a shit.
No, you need a different GM. Sanju needs to get you guys a GM that knows what he's doing in professional sports.
Yeah, exactly.
Bottom line, I'll say it out loud. I don't care.
Yeah, I'd say I don't care. I mean, this is Rick. It's okay. You can play the good cop. You got two bad cops over here.
Now, I'm not saying that the GM is the problem and why this season got delayed. But the club is snake bit, and there's one, like you said, there's one thing that connects all of those things together.
Single thread. So
anyway, at some point, you got to cut bait.
One thing that's promising is, based on my conversations, this is not So one thing that's promising, and one thing that's not very promising. One promising is that they will be calling me back in March about prices on season tickets. So that means that they are not firing, they're dismantling the organization right away.
And they've got a very thick organization.
They got people up and down there.
I have a hard time believing that they're going to go away. As long as vaccinations are available, there's safety going into 2022, which I'd be very surprised there isn't.
Yeah.
That we're in a different place, that we are normalized, that the Dallas Jackals will be playing in 2022. And one of the things I talked about very early on with the Jackals was, why aren't they doing a preseason sort of like what New England did and Old Glory did?
DC,
and playing a 1 year preseason before actually joining as a full time.
I mean, that's not cheap, and is that in the business plan?
Yeah.
And I would say in their case, it's probably no, it's
probably
not in the business plan.
Yeah. Well, it's you gotta think about everything that's happened too. Like you've got players that are already in Dallas.
With the undershirt group that they had, they could have transitioned easily to doing that.
Yeah.
Especially with the young players that they had. They weren't bringing in a bunch of big names from overseas. They could have easily have done this with the players that they were signing.
But the COVID bubbles that the have to put into place are expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, and the whole MLR is looking at that going, wow, this is something else. I mean, it is not cheap at all.
No.
Yeah, I don't know what LA does. I'm not sure they can play in their home stadium.
I'm not sure. Well, again, LA and San Diego is a question because of who knows if they'll be able to play, right? Just the locations, and Toronto is another questionable place, right?
It sounds like Toronto's already committed to playing in New York or somewhere nearby.
Pennsylvania.
Is that it?
Oh, I don't know. I was just saying Pennsylvania's Pennsylvania.
I'm hearing Buffalo / Syracuse potentially.
Yeah, that's one place I thought, but I also said, why not just go to Ohio? Like Toronto's like an 8-hour drive, if that, from Columbus. Yeah. Like they've got anyway.
What kind of news do you think we'll be talking about this time next month?
From Dallas or just in general?
Just MLR.
This is the first ball that MLR could have a canceled season because vaccinations are not coming out quick enough.
Yeah.
And I know we've got
really the only that.
What's that, Grant? Sorry. Rick, for those of you listening, Rick's connection is going in and out because Rick is on AOL.
And Rick is probably he's probably on his third goblet of Moretsu.
Oh, God, yeah. Rick has been drinking homebrew the entire time. If you can't see, and you know what, it's fine. Let him drink away his sorrows. But yeah,
I'll let y'all continue this conversation because I don't really want to talk about the Jackals' disappointment.
You're good, man. Listen, I think that it sucks, right? Like we were excited, had that somebody on Facebook asked, and it was a joke, but it's like, will Rick be leaving Texas Rugby Monthly because Dallas doesn't have a team? Dude, that was hilarious. But yes, no, he's not. It's uncalled for. No, Rick stays on. We like Rick. But
I've still got the Quins and the Reds.
There you go.
Two proud organizations, TRU, to talk about.
But I think it is, there's who knows what's going to happen in the next month, right? It's as you said, like this was big news. Like this is, they had everything going on, and we're now down a team in the West. He's gonna go grab his hat, just that boy. Or he's got his mask. Is this his jackal mask? Oh man, hold on a second here. We're gonna make sure.
That's wow.
We're gonna put that on.
I mean, I painted this.
That would have been lit.
That would have been lit.
But that is awesome.
That's what the kids say. That'd have been lit. Well, Grant, you asked.
Hey, I'm good.
Yeah. What are we going to be talking about in a month? I don't know. We'll be talking rugby in one form or another. Right, what's that?
It's a lot of uncertainty right now. So.
Yeah, and
it's worrisome because a lot of the places where we have teams are hotspots.
Yeah, major cities. That's a hotspot. So I don't know.
Well, guys,
man, I don't.
We've had fun tonight.
Yeah,
except for Rick.
Except for Rick.
Rick's had fun drinking his homebrew.
This is making it a little bit better. But I'll be fair about that.
Yeah. It is. There's a lot to talk about. Next time. I think we'll talk about next time about the disbursement draft that will happen with the Jackals players. Which who knows what'll happen there. We'll talk about.
I just want to see the hometown boys come to Houston.
How is that? How is that even going to work?
I don't know.
All the teams have signed almost all their players.
It's
a good thing that most of our players are development players, I guess.
So if the money's already in escrow for the player salaries, which it should have been, what?
I said they can go anywhere.
It's just a matter of where they're going to go. I'd love to see Tellis and Mooneyhan come to Houston. I know Mooneyhan's already living in Houston, and Tellis, his family's here. Yep. So I'd love to see them in Houston for a season. That would be a great thing for those individual players. I'm sure that we move some of those other players around the union. I bet we're going to have, which is what happened, with DC and Free Jacks. So, yeah. I mean, we've done that all throughout the time here is we've moved players around like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's really a good thing for the union in order to get that in. So
well, it's lots to talk about, and man, not ending on a kind of a sad note. Like it kind of sucks for Rick, but
Rick, we're with you. Cheers.
I got nothing left.
Cheers.
For all of you listening, we greatly appreciate it. I got no special sign off today. It's just kind of crappy. But hey,
hopefully next time we're talking about season.
We'll talk about a season that's happening. We appreciate everybody joining on the podcast, on the video and on audio. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Follow us on everywhere. Follow us at Texas Rugby Monthly on the new Facebook page that we got too. You can see these 3 smiling faces every single month. Until next time, gentlemen, have a good one.
You too, Justin.
See ya.